All right, we're ready to go?
I'm blowing at my shoulder.
Yes, sir. Koyach. Good everybody. How's everybody doing? Today's Shiur, Lilu Nishma Asimi Mirasi Rus Bas Mordechai, and a very special sponsor who has very, very dark humor, who wishes to remain anonymous. Shkoyach. Okay. One very short email. This is from Ari Bloom. He says, "Hi, Rebelli, just a quick email to say that I now have another reason to thank you. You see, this week is a Time UK Shasathon. This year, of course, rather than learning together under one roof with a big siyum, we're all having to learn at home on our own. Everything's good, Gary? Okay, great. I chose the first 10 blot of Eruvin, and I get to do chazor of Yeshurim and laugh at those jokes a second time. Only English people will laugh twice at that. No, they're not watching now, so we can make fun of them. And yes, I'm still following the daf, though it's usually on Torah Anytime YouTube. And I can now say that I missed a day and carried out, because last time he sent in, I yelled at him for trying to be a perfectionist, and Baruch Hashem, he learned not to be a perfectionist. He missed a day, and he carried on. Kol Tuv Ari Bloom. P.S. When you're ready, let's talk about the MDY newsletter sometime, and we should do that too. I just want to tell you a quick story that I read today, fresh off the press, and I'm very impressed. My favorite story is about Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and this is a beautiful story that he was on a bus. Every day he would take the bus from Shari Chesed to Beit Vegan to Kol Torah. So he's taking a bus, and his Talmidim were following him. You know, they're in the bus watching the Yeshiva, and the stop came to get off at Yeshiva, and he didn't get off. He got off the next stop. So of course they asked him, Rebbe, why'd you miss the bus? He said, well, the guy next to me had 2 salim full of fruit. So if I had to get off, I'd have to ask him to move. I didn't want to be matriach him. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, unbelievable. Those are the kind of stories that I love, and I thought I would share with the Olam. So today we're starting Daf Chov Zayin. It's a brand new parak which starts in Daf Chavav Amud Beis. We finished Oisim Pasin, and now we're starting Bakol Ma'arvin Umishtatvim. You make an eruv with every kind of food. What kind of eruv? Says Rashi, eruv chatzeros and eruv tchumen. Tchum, of course, is when a person wants to go more than the 2,000 allotted amas that he's allowed. So he puts a meal at the end of where he's able to go to. Let's say he's able to go to 2,000 amas. He puts his bread over there. And then from that point on, he goes another 2,000 amas. His makam shvisa, he's actually hanging out on Shabbos where his bread is. That's tchumim. Why Rashi says chatzeros, the Rishonim discuss it, because at the end of the day, this doesn't apply to Eruv Chatzeros, says Taisvas. Fine. He says, according to everybody, at the end of the day, you need bread. It's not Bakol Ma'arvin. But Rashi's just bringing out the sugya. You could use any type of food. You could use meat, fish. We'll see fish later. Chutz min hamayim u'min hamelach. There are two foods that you can't use for an Eruv. Water and salt. Why? Because it needs to be a meal that nourishes you, and water is not a nourishment. Water is liquids, not a nourishment. And salt is salt. And once we're mentioning Eruv, says the Mishnah, V'hakol nikach b'kesef meiser. So meiser, we're talking about meiser sheni. It's kedai to chazer and chazer anytime we have a chance. So step number 1 is you give Truma G'dayla approximately 2%. Depends how large you are. If you want to give more, you give more. There's no real shear. So let's call it 2%. Then now you have 98% left. Now you give Meiser Rishon, which is 10%. It goes to the Levi. And then step 3 is you give Meiser Sheni 10% to who? To yourself. You have to bring the fruit, 10% of your fruit, up to Yerushalayim and you eat your fruit. But if it's too much, the fruit, then you trade it into cash. What do you do with the cash? We're going to be discussing a lot of it. You take the cash and you buy what the Torah tells you, basically food items. Food items or even oil that you anoint yourself, but Food. You go to a nice restaurant. You go to the supermarket and you buy everything. So you fill up your cart with meat and flour, bread, and when it comes time to pay at the cash register, so you pull out your cash, your Meiser Sheni cash, and you pay. But you tell the cashier, wait a minute, here's my credit card for the water, the bottled water, and the salt. That I can't pay with cash. Everything else you can pay with cash from the Meiser Sheni. V'akol nigach b'kesef Meiser, chutz min ha'mayim u'min ha'melach. Hanoidim min ha'mazon, and if somebody says, I'm not going to eat today, I swear I'm not eating, mutar b'melach u'b'mayim. These two items, again, are not included in mazon. Mazon is something that sustains you. Nourishment, melach, and water are not. Or mayim b'melach, it should say. Me'arvin l'nazar b'yayin. Now the Mishnah goes on to say that you don't necessarily have to be able to eat the food. For instance, let's say you're a nazar. You made a neder that you're not going to drink wine. You're permitted to make an eruv out of wine. Why? Because other people could drink the wine. Uli Yisrael b'truma. And if you're Yisrael and you can't eat truma, the Gemara is obviously going to discuss why and where, different reasons. Uli Yisrael b'truma. You're Yisrael, you can't eat truma, but the kohen could eat truma. I can make my eruv out of truma. Sumchas oimer b'chulin. Not true. A Yisrael could only use chulin. He doesn't argue that a nazar could use wine. Why not? Also discussed. Ulekoyim bebeis hapras. Beis hapras, very famous. There was a grave that somebody plowed over it. It's unknown where the tumah is, so it's a suffix tumah. So the kohen could place his eruv in the Beis hapras. Why? Because he could go into the Beis hapras. How? I got to show you this picture. This is back from Nida time, but I couldn't really find a picture on the internet of a guy blowing something because he could get down on all four. Why are you laughing? You know what's coming up? What's coming up? Let's see if you know. Who? Michael Jordan with the yam. Anyways, this is the picture of a guy blowing. He literally, this is what it looks like. He could get up on all four. He could get on all four and blow his way through the Beis hapras until he gets to Zeruv. Since he could do so, no, this is a from guy. What do you, don't? He has tzitzis, he has a yarmulke. This is allowed. Under the rules, this is allowed. Says the Gemara, anyways, Motzei Shabbos, nobody really watches this. Tchelas, yeah, he's, Michal Yarden is very makbid in Tchelas. His friend also became a ger just recently. What's his name? Stoudemire. Amari. They'll all become ger soon. Zok the Gemara. Yeah. Hare. Did I just tell you the story? I didn't tell you the story with Michael. Me and my friend Sender, I forgot his first name in Pesach. I might have just said it. Did I just say it? I just told somebody else. Because he just told somebody, we went to the airport to pick somebody up, and the guy was coming from Chicago. He's a Choshev Rosh Yeshiva now. Sender, what's his first name? I don't remember. Anyways, I learned with him Pesach. And all of a sudden, this giant guy comes off the plane. It's like, whoa. And then another giant. And this was in 1987. And these giants, and I look at him, very, to me, I said, in Chicago, they're very tall. Not realizing that the entire Chicago Bulls were on this United flight. They didn't have a private plane then. And then all of a sudden, this guy, Michael Jordan, comes up and they start screaming, people yelling and autographs. And I was the first guy there. I'm like, yo, how tall are you? He says, suk, something like that. I don't remember. He actually answered me. Hare matzo. So, sorry. We're holding the last few words of Chavav Amud Beis. Afidu ben hakfaros. You could go to the Beis hakfaros. The kohen could do it in the Beis hakfaros. Why? Because he could show up in a helicopter without any tumah, or in those days it's called the Shida Teva Migdal. He could just show up in the Beis hakfaros. Rashi says before Shabbos, before Ben Ishmashes. Okay. Point is, he has a way to do it, and therefore he could place his eruv in a place that's usher to go to, or food that's usher to eat. Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Yochanan, Ein lemedim min haklalois va'afilu b'mokoim shenemar b'chutz. Wow. Says Rabbi Yochanan, every klal, every rule has some sort of, and by the way, Rabbi Yisrael Stalanter says this. He says, every klal has a yotzim and a klal, including this klal that has a yotzim and a klal. In other words, every rule has an exception to the rule, including this rule that every rule has an exception to the rule, because not every rule has an exception to the rule. There are some rules that don't have an exception. And that's basically what Rabbi Yochanan is saying here. If a Mishnah says a rule, it doesn't mean that it includes everything. Even in a place where it says the word chutz. What does that mean? If the Mishnah says, this is the halacha, tak, 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 besides A and B, so you would think, since it says chutz, and it says besides A and B, it already included everything. It's already telling you all the rules you need to know, the rules and the exception to the rules. No. Even in a place that says chutz, there are more exceptions. Now, the Gemara goes on. Since Rabbi Yochanan explains himself and says, even in a place where it says the word chutz, now, in our Mishnah it says chutz, right? Says the Gemara, obviously Rabbi Yochanan wasn't giving over this Mishnah when he said this rule. It doesn't make any sense. He would say, even in a place, you're in that place. He wouldn't say, even in a place where it says chutz. He would say, even over here. He would use a different wording. From the fact that he says, even in a place, afilu b'makom shenemar b'chutz, miklal delav hachikai. Rabbi Yochanan wasn't in this Mishnah when he said his special rule about rules. Echikai. Where was he when he said this? And now, the Gemara is going to take us on a very wild trip through Shas. I love when the Gemara does it because we get to see many, many different halachas. We're going to go through a lot of stuff. A lot of them we're very, very familiar with. Some of them not so much. But it's a great chazara. Starting off with a very geshmaka Gemara and a very famous one. Hasam Koi, I'll tell you where he was. Kol mitzvah seishas man grama. We're very familiar with this halacha, that any place where the time is what dictates when you do the mitzvah, echad noshim, echad anoshim chayavim, echad anoshim chayavim, noshim pturos. That's mitzvah seishas man grama. Women are pater. V'shalayas man grama, when it's not time bound, has nothing to do with the time. So, for instance, what's a time-bound mitzvah? Sukkah, lulav, shofar. So women are pater. V'shalayas man grama, what's a good mitzvah that's shalayas man grama? V'hafta l'recha kamaycha. You have to do it all the time. So memela, women, v'shalayas man grama, echad noshim v'echad anoshim chayavim. Everybody is chayiv. Whoa, klalo, is that a solid rule? The kol mitzvah azesha man grama, noshim peturos, hari matzah. What about matzah, the first night of Yontif, of Pesach? Women are chayiv, even though it's time-bound. Why are women chayiv? Because they're mechuyev in the loisas of chametz. They cannot eat chametz, and whoever can eat chametz has to eat matzah. Simcha. You have to be happy on Yontif. It's coming up soon. Simcha. Literally, it's not a joke. You have to be happy on Yontif. Women also, because it says uveisecha, atu uveisecha, your wife as well. V'hakel. Lubavitchers are very familiar with this. We don't even know what that is. But hakel is every 7 years on the Shemitah year. After Shemitah, everybody gathers. Anoshim, Noshim v'taf. They all gather in the Beis Hamikdash. The Melech stands on a platform and he reads from Dvarim. He reads the Parsha. Hakel. But women have to go. Anoshim, Noshim v'taf. The mitzvah is man grama. It's only once every 7 years. Simcha is only on Yontif, Matzah is only on Pesach, Benoshim Chayavos. So it's not a clear-cut rule. And more than that, V'chol mitzvah say Shaloi Azman Grama. Now I'm going to bring you a few examples where there's no time limit, there's no time constraint, it's not time bound. Benoshim Chayavos, which Hari Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah, you're supposed to learn V'gisiba Yoimam V'Layla. Rashi brings all the time, right? Does Rashi bring it here? Or all the time. Talmud Torah, period v'ribya, that only men are chayivim because darko shilish l'chazar al isha. Upidyan ben, only A man is chayiv on Pidyon. What is Pidyon Ben a mitzvah as mangrama or lo as mangrama? When do you do Pidyon Ben? Only on the 30th day. So l'chayr it should be mitzvah as much as mangrama. What? Once there's a chiyuv of the mitzvah, which is the 30th day, then the chiyuv goes on forever. So Pidyon Ben, the mitzvah zeh shelo as mangrama, you chayiv all the time. V'noshim p'turos. So why women pater from it? So it's a rule, but the rule was meant to be broken a little bit. And even over there, even where it says chutz. More. I'll bring you more proof. In order to bring this proof, we're going to go through a little tumantara, just a little bit. And then he said another klal. Anything that's on top of the zav is tamei, even if he's not touching it, and that's called elyon shel zav. It's tamei as a rishon. So he's carrying a bunch of stuff. Everything is tamei. V'chol she'azav nisa olav tahar. Now, if a zav sits down on something, doesn't touch it, there's no heses, so it's tahar. Machlokes is rishonim if tar means literally tar 100%, or tar that it's a very light tumah. Let's call it tar, okay? Tar. He's completely tar. You'll remember we had this sugya. If a zav sits on a bucket, it's not a chair because we could tell him, "Amoid v'nasam lachtenu." What are you doing on my bucket? I have to do sponge. Get off my bucket. So since it's not meant to sit on, therefore, it doesn't become tamei at all. Whereas a couch, even bismanenu, since a zava, nida. Now, I forgot to mention, what is a zav? Okay, we're coming out of nida, so I thought it's obvious. Zav is if a man has an emission that's not keri, it's some weird fluid that comes out. We're not very familiar with it today. Maybe he sees it twice. Zav. The kitzer, doesn't matter how many times. A zava, also the same thing. It's a different type. It's a sickness. It's a disease. It's not, has nothing to do with nida, has nothing to do with keri. This is zav, ziva, and a yeledes. Anyway, when they sit down, they make things tamei if they are meant to be sat on. So that's why couches in every house would be l'chayra completely tamei. Zav zama yeledes, sitting on it would create tumah. Chutz min haroy lemishkav u'moishav. If it's meant to sit on like a couch, then when a zav yileh sit on it, it becomes av hatuma, top tuma, tremendous tuma. Ve'adam, and a human being who lifts up a zav, he becomes a rishon. Great. So we have some sort of idea of what the zav does. Ask the Gemara b'suleka. Voika merkov. There's something called merkov. Riding. When you ride something, it becomes tamei. So Gemara, what are you talking about? Hi merkov echidami idi yosef alei. If he's riding on a donkey and he's sitting on a saddle, hi no moishav. So why is that any different than a couch? Of course. And this is what we meant. Gabadu kafa. You have this guy. This is part of the saddle. This, you're right. This is like a couch. You're doing the whole Zoom thing, Gary? I don't see anything. But I'm watching on Zoom. What do I see? I don't see anything. How come I don't see it popping up on the screen? No, I'm saying I have Zoom like everybody else has. I'm seeing what they see. How come on my screen not? Anyway, so on the saddle, you have these little guys that if you ever went horseback riding, you know what I'm talking about? In those days, everybody had it. Every car, which is a horse, has it. So this guy they hold on to, this is the typhus, you hold on to it, or the guy in the back, well, in the back, that is the chiddush here, that it becomes tamei. Hogav tamei moishav, vatfus tamei merkav. What happened? I am? He just called me a nice name in front of 1,000 people, maybe 2,000. Right now? Oh, you mean no? Forget about me. I'm just a regular guy watching it on Zoom. They're seeing that. Okay. Whatever. Anyway, so we're talking about this little chupchik here. Rashi on Chumash says anything that's similar to this guy, whatever that means. I don't know if it means, let's say, a handle on a chair, whatever he means by that. But anything that's similar to this is in this Merkav thing. Okay, so it's a special halacha of Merkav. But the bottom line is that it wasn't brought down in this whole brisa. In this mission, it doesn't say anything about this tafos thing, the thing you hold on a saddle. So you see again the concept that it says a klal and it includes other things. And we're going to continue. We're going on in Chas, other stuff. You can make, we're not going in all Chas. It's in our Mishnah itself. In our Mishnah it says you can make an Eruv with all foods. Why do I want to see myself, Gary? I want to see the oilam. Get me off the screen. No, I don't want to see them. I don't want to see me. I want to see them. Shkoyach. Anyway, there's more foods. The maimu melach, v'suleke, v'oika, kimeim, upitriyos, truffles. I think it's like one of the most expensive foods in the world. Maybe the most expensive. I don't know. But it costs like what, thousands of dollars a pound? Whatever the price is. Upitriyos and mushrooms. These are things that you cannot make an erev with. Elish mamino. Ein lemeidim min haklolois va'afilu b'makom shenemar boichot. Reb Shimshon Weiss. Shalom aleichem. Oh, you know what I see here? I see Leiby. Leiby, how you doing? How's Bidud treating you? And this is the first time I've seen you on Zoom in months. You usually do it on the phone. Unbelievable. Leiby is in Bidud. Did you make it to your sister's wedding or you're in Bidud? You didn't make it to the wedding. Unbelievable. Unreal. Why? You have corona or just your son? You don't have, and you couldn't go to the wedding. Wow. All right. Akol min hashamayim. Unreal. We're living in crazy times, everybody say. He's in Eretz Yisrael. His sister made a chas in Eretz Yisrael. He couldn't go to the sister's wedding. We miss you in Koilel. We hope to see you soon. Even in a place like in our Mishnah, where it says, and I would think that the Mishnah is coming to tell us exactly the exceptions to the rule. Water and salt. No, there's other exceptions. There's truffles, there's mushrooms that you cannot make an erev with. Says the Gemara, Kol nikach bekesef meiser. Says, right? So going back to meiser shein. Step number 3 is 10% of your fruit goes to you. And if you don't want to schlep all that fruit to Yerushalayim, you trade it into cash. And in Yerushalayim, you buy all these food things and oil for the body. Says the Gemara, Rebbe Lezer, Rebbe Yossi Bar Chanino, Chad Masniya Eruv, the Gemara is going to explain. The Chad Masniya Meiser, the Gemara is going to explain. Chad Masniya Eruv, Lo Yishonu Ela Mayim B'fnei Atzmo Yu Melach B'fnei Atzmo De'ei Ma'arvim. This that it says that you don't make an Eruv, it means bottled water and a package of salt. But what if you took the two together and you made salt water? I always have to show the picture from England, and I'm sure you can find the same product in Pomegranate and Flatbush, but they do sell salted water. Unbelievable. It costs how much? €1. For those who are too lazy to take the salt and mix it in water, they make it for you. Crazy, no? I always get a kick out of this one. Fine. But this, Rabbi Isai, you can make an Eruv out of this. This you could make an Eruv. According to everybody, you can make an Eruv out of this. The question in the Machlokes is, could you buy this with Meiser Sheni money? That is the Machlokes. So let's see inside. Chad Masnei Eruv. I could make an Eruv out of salt water. That's shita number 1. I cannot purchase salt water in the store, even though it's a nice mixture and it costs a full €1 to buy the salt water. I cannot purchase it with Meiser Sheni money. Let's do it again. Each one by itself I cannot purchase. I can't purchase. I cannot buy water by itself and salt by itself. But for Meiser Sheni, I could buy this. So again, the Gemara explains. Should I do it again, or I confused everybody by confusing myself? Let's do it again. Let's start from the top. When it's salt by itself, water by itself, I cannot make an Eruv. If it's salt, water, I can make an Eruv, great. And the other one says this halacha exactly, but on Meiser Sheni money. What can you not purchase with Meiser Sheni money? Water and salt. Then you koch them. That's what you can purchase. If it's ready-made, like this picture, even with Meiser Sheni money, nikachem because of Meiser, I could purchase it. So what's the difference between the two? Very simple. Man the Meiser, kolchkin ha'erev. This shita which we just said a second, that I could purchase with Meiser Sheni money, ready-made salt water. Hey, I can't make fun of them anymore. They used to sell it in those days. That's what it says. I could purchase, I could have somebody make this for me. So certainly, I can make an Eruv with it. If I could buy it with Meiser Sheni money, certainly with it, I can make an Eruv with it. So, according to the Shita, I could make an Eruv with salty water. And according to the first Shita, the same thing as well. The only difference between them is could I purchase with Meiser Sheni money salty water. But an Eruv, according to everybody, I could use out of salt and water mixed together. Avala Meiser loy. My taima peira be'inon. When it comes to Meiser Sheni, according to this mandamar, the first mandamar, I need to purchase a fruit that was born from a fruit. Something that's born from another something. That's what it means. Yeah? Doesn't necessarily mean fruit. It means an animal who is born from another animal, or anything that was created in the ground from a seed, but it has an origin. Now I don't know. I just saw that the Rishonim are say like mushrooms are considered pre. I have to look into that. Why? Ki Asa Rabbi Yitzchak masna meiser. Rabbi Yitzchak came and said, "Oh, if you have Meiser Sheni money, cash, you could purchase in the store, ready-made salt water." Meisvei. So they asked the question. Hey, Rabbi the Megodish lefnei Rabbi Eliezer. So remember this name because we're going to bring him up soon. Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish said, "Shel beis Abba in my father's house." In other words, in Godish's house, hoyloichim tzir bekesef meiser. Tzir is a very famous food throughout Shas. It's fish brine. It's the lowest on the totem pole of food. There's like the only thing lower than that is like water and salt. There's water, salt, and the fish brine. That's like very shvach of food. It's the juice that comes out of the fish. So he says you could purchase fish brine, but not water, not salt water. Maybe the pshat is that the reason why you could purchase it is only because it has some innards of the fish in it mixed in, but not stop. And now, so step number one, maybe we're talking about fish brine that has some fish in it. It's like thick. That's why you could purchase it with Meiser Sheni money. And even if you're not going to go with that, but you're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda ben Godish said specifically fish brine without any innards. But okay, it's still better than salt water. Why? The shumana de peirohai. It still has a little bit of the oil from the fish. So where did you get this? That you could, he's asking Rabbi Yitzchak, how could you, Rabbi Yitzchak, say that you could, with Meiser Sheni money, you could go to the Makolet and purchase salt water? The most you could do is purchase fish brine. Fish brine has a little connection to fruit, to something that was born from something else, to the fish itself. It has a little bit of fish oil in there. So it's considered a pre. But stam, water from a faucet and salt, what's the connection to the fruit? Fruit meaning created from another creation. By the way, I just don't want to forget this Tosfos, and the Ritva says the same thing. It says maybe even easier if you want to look in the Ritva, that something, and this is also a very important thing. I hope not to forget it. Okay, remind me, the gra. So the Tosfos right here, this bottom Tosfos, Man de Masna Meiser, he says a big yisoid. He says, if you turn the page, you'll see like 2 lines down, that the reason why you can't make an eruv with different truffles and mushrooms is because they're not ready to eat right now. And in an eruv, you have to be able to eat it now on Shabbos. You can't take a frozen piece of meat, maybe it's chazil umtza, but you can't take, let's say, a pumpkin, okay? Something that you have to cook, you cannot use as an eruv. Whereas Meiser Sheni, you could purchase any type of food. You could purchase a pumpkin with Meiser Sheni because you're going to cook it up and eat it later. You don't have to be able to eat it right now. An eruv is a halacha of a su'uda, something that nourishes you right now, so it has to be roy la'achila right now. So, talking about that, the Vilna Gaon says you could make an eruv out of mushrooms and that sort of thing. I think that's what he says. And something Tzion Yerushalayim, I don't know what it is. I think it's some Sephardi Rav says, "B'mechila mechvay toirasoi" of the Vilna Gaon. How dare he say such a thing and be mechulak on all the Rishonim? There's hardly a Rishon that says like the Vilna Gaon. Chazon Ish in the Igros Chazon Ish says that the Vilna Gaon, I forgot that I saw it on Shabbos. He says that you're allowed to, that the Vilna Gaon was one of the only people that he was allowed to argue on Rishonim. That's what he says. Okay. So there's enough community between maybe Abbas Shaul. I have to find out who this Tzir Yerushalayim. Something says and the Chazon. Machlokes is Chazon Ish, and whether he has the right to argue in Rishonim or not. So now we're turning to Daf Chav Zayin Amud Beis. I have to go all the way back here to see the names. Lilu Nishmas, Reza Bas Ben Yamin, and make it a great day. And Lilu Nishmas, Dr. Listhouse, his father, Mordechai Yosef ben Aaron Listhouse. Says Rabbi Yosef, what's going on here? This water and salt, you see this salt water? This salt water has some oil in it. That's why you could purchase it with Meiser Sheni money. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to. If that's the case, so he's buying oil. You let it buy oil. Why can't you buy oil in the Makolet? You let it buy oil. So why are you talking the entire time about water and salt? It's the oil. Says the Gemara. What's going on over here is a brand new concept. Rabbi Isai, unbelievable sugyas, right? The concept of Avlah. Well, when we're learning in Masechet Shabbos, we learned the concept of Avlah also, like when a person works on Shabbos, so he gets paid for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you pretend sort of that you're paying. It's the same idea over here. What happens is, let's take Coke, for instance. I buy a can of Coke for $1. What am I paying for? I'm paying for 95 cents. I'm paying for the syrup, the 14 spoons of sugar, etc. And 5 cents maybe is the filtered water in there. So I'm not allowed to buy Coke with my Sheni money because it has 5 cents of water. So the answer is I could. Why? Because it's bahavla. It's swallowed in the price. You jack up the price for the syrup, and it includes also the water. I'm not charging you for the water. I pretend that the water is not charged there. That's the pshat. I'm charging you $1 for the syrup, and the water is for free. L'maisa, the Coke company does the whole cheshbon. They say, no, 95 cents is for this, and 5 cents is for the water. You're paying something for the water. No. Halachically, I could just swallow it and pretend it. So the same thing happened over here. This bottle that costs 99 cents, I'm paying 99 cents for the oil. Oil by itself, I would only pay about 50 cents. But I'm also paying 50 cents for the water and the salt. But that's Bahavlah. We're pretending that you're not paying for the water and salt. We're pretending that you're paying just for the oil. That's the Chiddush over here. Is there such a concept in? Yes. Vatanya, and I'll prove it to Bag. Oh! Rabbi Isai, if you were here in Masechtas Brachas every day, there's songs. There's a Masechtas Eruvin. We're going to have to sing Bag. But I have a bunch of people that don't sing. Oh, Gershon's here. Bag, oimer, bag. Okay, weiter. No, what's the next words? I don't know. Hafachbo, cool. Gewaldig. Zayin ben bag boimer, babokor, melamed shloichim bokor al gava oiroi. Here. It says in the pasuk, babokor, ubatzoin, ubayayir, ubasheichor. Bokor is a cow, an ox. Tzoin. So really what's going on here, if you look over here, we're going to have this pasuk soon. The pasuk says, v'nosato hakesef b'chol asher. This is talking about my Sheni. I come to Yerushalayim with all my cash. What do I do with it? The Torah tells you what you do with it. You could do b'chol asher taven avshecha. Green light. You could buy everything you want. And then the Torah limits you. Ba'bokor, u'batzoin, u'bayayin, u'basheichar. These are limitations. And then it continues. U'b'chol asher. That includes. Why is everybody laughing? What is going on here? Okay. I see also the Oilam is laughing. Okay, we got the idea. Why is he playing the entire song? It's Motzei Shabbos. People want to go to sleep. Babokor says that when I buy a cow with my Sheni, when I could buy a live cow, but I could buy also the hide that comes with the cow, but it's not edible. If you were to purchase a bunch of hide, you're a soifer. Could you buy hide with my Sheni money? No. But if I'm buying a cow, I could buy the hide. What does that tell me? That's Bahavlah. I'm buying a cow for $1,000. I'm buying all the steaks without. It happens to include the hide that I'm not paying for it at all. The same thing with tzoin. Tzoin comes to include also the wool. Yayin comes to include the barrel. Why can I keep the can, the Coke can? Because Bahavlah. Coca-Cola for sure charges you for the can. It's not free. They paid money for it. They have to charge you for it. It's Bahavlah. It's included. It's swallowed in the price. Sheikhar means old wine, says Rashi. Comes to include temed. Temed means that you take water, after you're done with your wine, you take water and you add water to the sediment. And then you have some sort of, a little bit of a drink. It ferments. It's actually a little bit alcoholic. That temed also, the water that's in the temed is nivla. Okay. We're going to get back to this, by the way, these four things. What? Grappa, it's called? They still use it today? They still do it today, Temed? Grappa. All right. They don't sell kosher grappa, but there's such a thing as grappa. I got it. It does? If after it ferments, it tastes like whiskey, he says. Okay. Beautiful. We learn new things every day. Temed. So let's see it inside. Ben bag, oimer. Babokor melamed shloichim bokor al gav oiroi, ubatzoy melamed shloichim tzoin al gav gizoso. You're permitted, even though, of course, wool is not included in the pasuk. You can't just go to the store and buy a bunch of yarn. But when you buy a sheep, it's included. Ubayayin, you can't buy a bunch of barrels. But this barrel is included. Melamed shloichim yayin al gavi kankano, ubasheichim melamed shloichim temed b'sheichmitz. I could buy the temed, even though it has a bunch of water in it. And water you're not allowed to purchase with my Sheni money, but this water is bottled into it's nivla into the rest. Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Yochanan an amazing thing. Whoever could get up here and explain to me what Ben Bagbag just said, but only one of the words. This word right over here, babakar. Everything else I understand. I don't understand bakar. If you could explain it to me, it's only Rabbi Yochanan in Shas that uses this lashon. It's exclusive to him. He says it a few times. Only Rabbi Yochanan. He's saying, if you could explain this to me, I'm willing to be your Talmud. I don't think anybody, it's like a bet. He's all out. I don't think anybody will be able to do it. If somebody could do it, I will take his clothing to the Beis Merchatz like a slave, like a shamish. Says the Gemara, why am I so confident and why am I upset over here? Because I don't understand why you need the word babakar. So, let's just go over Balpeh real quickly. What he does is, he goes from top to bottom, and then bottom to top. And he says, this piece of hide, this ar, is not part of the animal yet. So I need to say, okay, even though it's not part of the animal, so it's included in this pasuk. But soin is another level away. So the ar is attached. The ar is completely attached to the animal. So okay, so it's a little shvach. But what about giza? Giza is on top of that. It's completely separated from the animal. So I need to tell me a chiddush that even that I could buy with my zesheni money. Kankan is a barrel that protects the wine. Okay, so that's really completely detached, but it protects. And then you have temed. Temed is a big chiddush. Temed is water. So I could be mavliya water. Now if I go backwards, so I go temed to kankan, that's a shomer, to giza. But once I say that if I go backwards this way, so I'll ask you a question. Why didn't the Torah say sheichar, then yayin, then sign? Now I'm stuck at green. Giza. It includes, I could buy with my zesheni money, I could buy wool. So of course I could buy hide that's attached to the animal. For that I don't have an answer. Then why in the world did the Torah say bakar? Once I say giza, which is one step removed, it's further away than hide. Hide is literally attached to the animal, but over here, I'm saying that wool, that you don't need, the animal doesn't need wool. I could just shear off the animal and he'll live. I can't take off the animal's skin when he's alive, and he won't, so he's part of the animal. So if I tell you that giza, I could buy giza with my zesheni money, so of course I could buy hide. That I don't understand, says Rabbi Yochanan. So basically he's going to take us a trip from top to bottom, then he's going to take us back up, and he's going to get stuck that he doesn't need bakar. What happened? Shkoyach Tomer, good to vach. I'm not kidding. This is colder. What happened? You took, you know what? Now I realize that the water that he gave me before is probably from the toilet or something. This is geshmaka water. Or maybe it's just a plastic cup that changes the taste. I'm serious. It's much better water. But this is going to fall off the table. All right, here we go. It says inside, Di Kosa Rachmana. You have it 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 lines down. Di Kosa Rachmana Babakar. If the Torah would just say Bakar, it's part of his body. But when it comes to a sheep, the wool is not part of his body. It's not included. Because at the end of the day, the wool is attached to the animal. Okay, it's not part of it, but it's attached. But wine inside a barrel is not included. You can't buy it with my zesheni money. Because wine, that's the way you keep it fresh with a nice barrel. Temed is just colored water. That's what the Torah says. Sheichar. So I need all four of them. Now, we're going to go backwards. Because okay, each one makes sense. You need it after the other one. But what if you go backwards? What if the Torah would have said first sheikhar? Then what would you do? Because Rachmana b'sheikhar avamina my sheikhar devela ki'ilis. So when I told you this, I wasn't very accurate. So that's why we have to see it inside the Gemara. My sheikhar devela ki'ilis. I would say sheikhar doesn't mean old wine to include temet. I would say sheikhar means a fig that comes from ki'ilis. In fact, Rashi brings here in Krisos that if a person eats this fig, he shouldn't walk into the Beis HaMikdash. It can make him drunk. It's like not an edible fig. It's not something that you typically eat. You don't give it to your kids. They'll be shikker. So, fine. Sheikhar means dveila ki'ilis. The peiruhu, it's a chiddush. Even such a fruit you could buy with Meiser Sheni money, because at the end of the day, it's a fruit. But wine that's inside a barrel, no. You can't buy the barrel. It's extra. It's not part of it. Because okay, the wine needs the barrel. Wine without a barrel doesn't exist. You know why? Because it'll be all over the floor. But perhaps the sheep doesn't need all that wool. Therefore, the Torah says tzoin. Oh, as Rabbi Yochanan Babakar Lamali. So if we're going backwards from bottom to top, why do we need the word babakar? Okay, so maybe if the Torah only said batzoin and wouldn't say babakar, I would think tzoin is coming to include the hide of the sheep. We're not talking about the wool of the sheep. It's only because we have an exclusion or a reboot to say the hide of a cow. So that's why we also say that tzoin means the wool. But if I don't have hide of a cow, so maybe sheep comes to include the hide. It doesn't even come to include the wool. Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, no, I would never think that. Why? Because if I want to tell you hide, the best way for me to tell you is a cow. Because a cow doesn't have wool. If I want to confuse you really well, then I tell you sheep. Because sheep has hide and it has wool. So which one are you talking about? So if I'm HaKadosh Baruch Hu right in the Torah, I'm going to tell you bakar. I don't want to confuse you. So why in the world did the Torah say tzayin? To tell you wool, not hide. I would never think that a sheep comes to tell me hide, because if I wanted to tell you hide, I would say something very clear, bakar. From not being clear, obviously I'm telling you wool. So tzayin means wool. So therefore, once this green tzayin comes to tell me wool, so if wool I could buy with Meiser Sheni money, of course I could buy hide. So then why do I need the word babakar? Whoever could explain it to me, I'm going to take his clothing to the Beis HaMerchatz. Fine. Says the Gemara. So we had before a machlokes of Yehuda ben Gadish whether or not you could purchase fish brine. And the Gemara says, well, even if you say you could, it has some oil in it. What about the fish itself? Of course you could buy fish, right? That's Yehuda ben Gadish. But we are talking about, we're going to bring here a sheet that says fish are not included. Fish are different than all other foods. Says Gemara, Michael Mifligi. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, Rabbi Lezer. V'hane Tanoi del Kamon, and the Tanoim that we're going to say in a second, that we're going to bring. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, Rabbi Lezer, Darshi, Ribuye u'mi'ute. V'hane Tanoi Darshi, Klole u'prote. Ooh. I mean, this needs a half-hour explanation. We'll do it in the 4 minutes that we have left. There's two concepts in the Torah. One of the things is klal u'prat u'klal. So this is your typical klal u'prat u'klal. You have a generalization, and then a specification. It says over here, bakol, you could buy anything you want. Then it says, babakar tzorna. And then it says klal. Tomorrow we're going to see there's a klal u'prat, just two, and there's a prat and a klal. Tonight we're talking about klal, prat, uklal. But this same exact thing could also be called riboy, miut, uriboy. I looked in the art scroll. What did he say? Amplification and limitation. I don't like it, but if you want to be, because I don't have anything better really. Riboy means to be marba, to include. He calls it amplification. It's a very fancy word. And limitation. Okay. I don't like it that much. Let's just call it riboy miut. Riboy miut. It's the same thing, but it's not the same thing. In other words, let me just tell you this, that if you learn klal upratu klal, then throughout the entire Torah, you're going to be learning klal upratu klal. That's your mahalach in the Torah. And if you're the type of guy, or you're the Tana that says riboy, miut, riboy, then the whole Torah you go riboy, miut, riboy. Okay. So, but what's the difference between the two? The very big difference is that klal means I'm making generalization, and then prat, I'm making a specification. So when I specify, I'm basically explaining everything. I'm explaining this klal. I'm saying this klal is not like you think. It's not everything. It's very specific to these things. And then I add, okay, so I add to these things, but it limits you very much. When you have a riboy, miut, and riboy, so you're just being mimait a specific thing. You're saying the Torah is not explaining. This klal upratu klal is more of an explanation. When you read this pasuk, everything, no. Let me explain to you. I didn't mean everything. I meant, let me explain to you what I meant. Riboy, umiyot, uriboy is not an explanation. It's more to limit one or two items. And therefore I'm going to limit, let's say in our case, water and salt. I'll limit brine. But it's not to explain to you a whole category. So says the Gemara, let's see inside. I told you we're going through the entire Shas here. All different concepts and different things. What we learned before, those who say that you could use fish, it's only a shaila whether you could use brine of the fish, which is Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, Rabbi Lezer. They learn darshi riboy umiyute. And the Tanaim that we're about to discuss, they do the klal upratu klal. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadish, Rabbi Lezer darshi riboy umiyute. Vinosata kes v'chol shetav nafshecho. The beginning of the pasuk, riba, it's a tremendous amplification. I hate that word. It's like not natural. It doesn't flow in the Gemara. Amplification. It's a riboy. It includes everything. It limited. So the final pasuk comes to marb everything. Riba akol. So the second one includes everything. My Rabbi, what does it mean? Rabbi kol mile, everything. Umay miyit. The Rebbe Lezer miyit tzir. According to Rebbe Lezer, it comes to exclude one item only. Brine fish. Well, of course, salt and water also. If brine fish not, then certainly salt and water not. Okay. The Rebbe Gadish, miyit maimu melach. But of course, according to Rebbe Gadish, you could purchase brine. Fish brine. Did I say brine fish? Fish brine. Okay, whatever. You get the idea. But so what does it come? It comes to be made two items called water and salt. However, the other Tanoim that now we're finally revealing, the Sanyo, they darshan klal upratu klal. The Sanyo, same pasuk, but they learn it a little differently. Instead of calling it a klal upratu klal, they call it a ribuy miut v'ribuy. And these particular ones call them klal upratu klal. Klal. Baba goratzon v'yayim shecha prat. U'chal shedishchol shecha chazav kol. Klal upratu klat iyatadon elokeina prat. It's a explanation of the entire pasuk, the prat. Ma prat meforish pri mepri. Look at these things. Boker tzoyin v'yayim. So when it's a riboy miut, the riboy, I don't learn anything from the miut. I'm not saying, just like salt water is very salty and it's bitter on your tongue, so anything that's salty and bitter, no, that's not how it works. I'm just going to exclude one item. That's it. But over here, this is an explanation. Bechol means it has to be like this. It has to be like the red. It explains to you what the pasuk is talking about. So what are these things? What do they have in common? Cows, sheep, wine, and Sheikha. What do they have in common? Oh, Ma Prat Mefoirish, Pri. They all grew, they all had parents, even grapes have parents, they have little seeds. Certainly sheep and cows. Vigidule karka, and they grow off the ground, different than all of Shas. In Shas, usually we say gidule karka, it means they grow from the ground. Over here it means grow, they nourish from the ground. Animals are not, they don't come out of the ground, but they eat the ground. They eat grass from the ground. So therefore, this is the list. And what's not on the list? Salt, water, things like that. Oh, now we have a slight machloikis in these Tanoim. It's not a slight one, it's a pretty big one. And he says, let me tell you something else. That these things were created from the ground. Where do grapes come from? The ground. Where do cows come from? Where do they originate from? On day one of creation, when they were created? From the ground. I've called Vladlodes Haaretz, my benayu, or Abaya, dogimike benayu. Fish were not created from the earth. Fish were created from Gershon, the water. Oh, you're looking over there. So, if you're going to say something that nourishes off the ground, fish nourish from the ground. In the ocean, there's ground, and they peck at the stones. They eat off the ground. They eat plants from the ground. It's still ground. This last line on the Amud. But it has to be created from the ground. Fish were created from water, and therefore you cannot purchase fish Erev Shabbos from your Ma'aser Sheni money, according to this one Manda Omar that holds Klal U'Prat Klal, but the other Manda Omar in Klal U'Prat Klal says you could. Have a wonderful night, have a wonderful week, and there's no Tehillim on Motzei Shabbos.